The tide comes in, pulls some sand back into the ocean. The land is lost, another fight it cannot win. The cycle begins. The clouds come in, turn from white to gray, then fade to nothing. They fall down to the ground just to be reborn again. The cycle begins.
What can you tell us of the story of the show? What kind of themes does it contain?
So, The Purgatorians is basically about this boy, man, whatever you want to call him. He's pretty young. He's about my age, so... He falls asleep one night, he's nice and warm in his bed, and he gets teleported to a faraway land where every 15 years a sandstorm kills everyone except for a few people. So he is not in the best of situations. And the story kind of involves him, I guess, meeting new people along the way and adapting to this situation as he goes along. There's, a few subplots involving the characters. A lot of the characters are really not safe, and it's not only from the land they're in. There's, dark forces at work, so to speak. The powers that be don't want to let the status quo be changed, so they're going to present a stumbling block to the main characters, it would seem. And some of the themes that sort of play into this are, the shadowy kind of background figures who pull the strings, the puppet masters, as it were. There's a bit of helplessness going on there, I think. Maybe, discovery. Of course, the helplessness from, every 15 years, clean slate, whoosh, everyone dies. They turn to sand. It sucks. But yeah, I think it's gonna deal with a few pretty dark themes and dark subject matter.
I can't tell you the entire story of the show, that would spoil it, but basically, I can't tell you the story. That's spoiling it, but I can tell you what the theme contains, so I will tell you that part because I don't spoil anything. It's a dark theme. It's just, there's bad people, there's good people, and then there's people where you don't know if they're real people or not. I mean, that's all I can say. There's confusing people in here. It's just a dark theme. There's mystery. There's everything you want in a drama.
A lot happens in the show. It has multiple storylines with multiple characters, and it's super, super awesome and very entertaining to listen to and to read. So I hope people who are listening to this stay tuned, because you're in for one heck of a ride. If you're into Game of Thrones and Wayward Pines, then do I have the show for you. So be sure to stay tuned.
The show's main theme seems to be plot twists everywhere, but other than that, the actual themes seem to revolve around corruption and redemption, abuse, fear, pack mentality, just all kinds of things like that just whirling around like this evil sandstorm. It's a pretty intense collage of themes with subtle undertones of comedy, and it's certainly the most ambitious project I've been involved with to date.
The Purgatorians is definitely a drama, a dark gothic drama type story with some mystery and some supernatural, and there's definitely some interesting character dynamics and complex relationships.
I'm not one of the big players in the show, but I think I can say how intrigued I am by its creepy atmosphere. The creator calls it Game of Thrones meets Wayward Pines. I've never immersed myself in either of those, but I think it might be appropriate to add a little bit of Twilight Zone in there. The world is familiar, but it's not our world. We're apparently in for a bit of a mind-bending ride. Prepare to be disturbed.
In your opinion, why should people listen to this show? What would keep them coming back for the next episode?
So, you guys, the lovely listeners, and all your friends, I think you should listen to this show and keep coming back for more, because you never know what you're gonna get with it, you know? I said before, Paul said, everyone's probably already mentioned this, it's like Game of Thrones, you know? You never know who's safe, and I think that adds kind of another level of excitement to it. You can watch all these, movies or read these books where the hero is wearing the shining armor and he cuts through all the enemies like they're nothing and blah blah blah, the bad guys can't get to him. But with this, no one's safe. There's always an element of danger, and that really heightens the threat level that all the main characters are facing, you know? You could have Jamie even going in to fight this battle and you don't know if he's going to come out of it. And I think that again, it adds this level, it heightens the excitement level. You're always on the edge of your seat wondering, is he going to make it, because this is one of those shows where it might not have a happy ending, and I think that people would be interested to see whether or not it does.
For one thing, the writing is spectacular. From what I've read of the script so far, the story is captivating and intricate, and the characters are all unique. Aside the script, the actors I work alongside are so diverse and so incredibly talented. I found myself on a cast list beside actors I've wanted to work with for so long, and a number of returning co-stars, and the range among us is simply remarkable. The main reason I'd commend people to support the series is because of the intense passion and perseverance of our director Paul, who really is pouring his heart and soul into the project to keep us constantly updated, to give us the best possible resources for recording, offering tips and advice, and just for his general patience and concern over all of us. He's a great guy, and I think anyone with even the remotest interest in the show owes it to him to keep going. He's the backbone of everything we're doing, and I'm really grateful to have a director who's so genuinely passionate and hardworking.
I think what would keep people coming back is the struggle between various forces and the mystery of it. And I think that we want to find out what's going to happen next, and it's suspenseful. I also think that the dynamics between the characters and the complex situations make this an interesting listen as well.
Well, maybe for the same reason people watch Game of Thrones despite getting pissed off because all their favorite characters die horrible, gory, bloody deaths, right? We just can't help but wonder what happens next, who dies next, who survives. We're masochists, that's why.
I think people should listen to the show because it has drama, it has romance, it has tension. Basically all good things that are in a show are going to be in the show. People will like it a lot, I think. I mean, everyone enjoys a good mystery and want to find out what the conclusion will be, so it's just something fun to listen to and to do guesswork, and maybe you'll expect something that you'd never really expected. It's definitely one of those stories that'll make you come back for more, just to find out what happens, and whether or not what you were thinking would happen is correct or not. Drama, action, mystery, all the good things that make a good show a good show.
The writing. I complimented the writer, after I got the first script. The writing is amazing. I mean, and I'm not saying that just to be like, oh yeah, check. No, the writing is amazing. I mean, the story is so in-depth. Everything is just well-rounded, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Reading those scripts, I honestly probably read all the scripts in 2 hours because it keeps you going. You want to know what is going to happen next with each character. I mean, trust me, we get through the first episode or the first 2 episodes and you're going to keep coming back. There's so much suspense. It's a horror, but there's just so much suspense and so many things that you don't know what's going to happen. And then you're shocked the next episode, and trust me, that's going to keep people back. I definitely think that's a huge, huge plus in the story, and if you don't come back, if you don't like an episode, trust me, come back to another one. You're gonna find things you enjoy. Each character you're either really gonna hate them or you're really going to love them, and that is something that will keep you coming back, I assure you.
What was your initial response when you read through the synopsis of the Purgatorians and the cast of characters involved?
As I read through the synopsis, quite honestly, my first thought was, wow, purely from how many characters there were, let alone how inclusive and diverse those characters were. I've auditioned previously for projects with larger casts, but I've only once before been involved in a project where there are over 30 cast members. I feel somewhat guilty in admitting that I very often skim or just don't read project bios, but when I saw just how much detail had been put into this one, knowing as a project creator myself just how tedious the process of creating a casting call is, let alone one of this size, I read through everything and was just immediately sold on everything. The whole thing just appealed to me in so many different ways, especially in considering its involvement of things that are often prevalent in my own work, such as abuse, murder, homophobia, and other generally depressing yet increasingly relevant occurrences of our current society that I constantly feel need to be addressed through any form of media, and The Purgatorians does just that, and in an entirely fictitious and engaging manner, and for that I truly take my hat off to Paul for his fantastic writing.
When I first read through the Purgatorian synopsis and cast listing, I thought it was a very ambitious project. It's very involved, there are many characters, and I thought that it could be very confusing for a writer to keep up with all of the characters and their interactions, so I admire the writers and project managers who handle projects like this and are able to handle a cast of characters this large and all the details of the story and keep everything consistent. I was very excited to get to audition because I thought that there were some very challenging characters that I could try out for. One was Alice Potts, and she's seen as the crazy old lady in town, but in reality she has some insights that are very important to the story and very important to the lives of the characters in the story. So I was challenged by the actual type of voice that she has, so I wanted to try out for that, and though she's kind of a side character, she's also very important to the movement of the story.
I rather enjoyed it as I first read through the synopsis. Stories that take place in another time or different world or another dimension has always been interesting to me, and now I have a chance to finally work on one, and it's super fun.
When I looked at the cast listing, it seemed like there were quite a lot of characters, and I automatically probably assumed that, a lot of these characters are probably going to disappear, come the first episode, the, first season. And luckily enough, these characters were actually very well-rounded, and he obviously knows where they're going, where we're going with them. And that was certainly one of my first thoughts, is that these characters are very well-rounded. He put a lot of detail into them. He very much gave them their own real personality, and I think that was a very strong attraction to this project.
Can you tell us about the character you are voicing? What do you feel will be the hardest part of bringing your character to life?
My character is Toby Harper, and I don't even know where to start with that. Well, the part that surprised me most about getting the role was I've never played a gay character before, and he is 100% openly gay. And that's going to be a little difficult for me, not because of any personal issues, but just because I want to portray it as accurately as possible without offending anybody. So I'm gonna minimize camp on the voice and just try to bring myself up maybe an octave, but I want him to be a realistic portrayal of a gay male. And he instantly falls in love with Jamie, and he hates Kimberly, calls her a skank, a whore, all that, and she thinks she's stealing Jamie away from him. And a lot of this is due to the fact that his mental age is around 12, but he's actually around 22. So I have a lot to work on with this character. It's going to be a really amazing challenge, because I'm playing a character who's a bit slower, but also completely openly gay. So it's going to be a lot different than anything I've ever played before, and it's going to be a ton of fun to try to get into.
I'm voicing Faith Parker.
Faith is struggling. She is going through a lot of stuff, and I think she's slowly starting to lose what sanity she had left, if she even had any to begin with. All I can basically say, without spoiling too much, is she's not someone you'd want as a mother. She's very scary. She's definitely an interesting and complex character. Everything Faith has been my biggest fear as a woman and as someone who plans to be a mother. that's probably the hardest thing, is when I first read the scripts, I was actually crying. I'm dead serious. I was crying because I'm like, oh my god, this is everything I've always feared coming to life and having to act that out. And for me, that is also, it's an amazing thing because I'm able to act out my biggest fears in front of a bunch of people, and that is something that is just absolutely amazing, and a lot of people won't have the chance to do.
I think so, without giving anything away. Her name is Tamara Wakefield. She's Keith's wife. Apparently she has excruciating arthritis in her back, but she still has to work the farm to earn her keep, and it leaves her in a lot of pain. I can totally relate to this character. I'm 35. I've had a bad back since I was about 17. I've got 2 bulging discs, arthritis, and bone spurs, and I've gone through physical therapy. I've had a surgery already. And just like her, I cannot stop working. I refuse. I have to stay busy and useful and earn my keep and pay my rent and be a productive member of society. I frequently work myself to the point of needing a cane to hobble around with, but that's okay because I use it to threaten to beat my coworkers with. I'm totally kidding, by the way. We have such similar weaknesses, I have to remember she's still not me. I deal with my aches and pains by joking around and making light of them, but she seems much more serious than I am. I might find myself forgetting that I'm not actually playing myself in this show.
Kimberly is 25 years old as of the first episode, and is described on multiple accounts as being incredibly conventionally attractive. She has these massive breast implants which often a distraction to Jamie, much to Kimberly's amusement and Toby's disdain. I actually see a lot of myself in Kimberly, in that she's rather sassy, she's considerate and tries hard to be kind, but is prone to running into things with all guns blazing, without much thought to the consequences. I remember reading through the character description and how it described her as the kind of woman who would run headfirst into a fight without thinking things through first, and just thinking, yep, that's me, I'm definitely auditioning for her.
I'm voicing 2 characters in the Purgatorians. One that I mentioned earlier is Alice Potts, and she's known as kind of the town crazy lady. But she has some insight, and she's very important to the flow of the story, and she's able to reveal some important things throughout the story. So even though she's a side character, she's very important. The second character that I'm voicing is Mason Parker. He's a 6-year-old boy who's a main character in the story, and he has a very, very involved, very dramatic role in this story, and I don't want to reveal too much, no spoilers, so 6-year-old boy and a crazy old lady, that's me. I think the hardest part of bringing my characters to life is the actual voice and the drama, because I'm stretching myself. I challenged myself with these 2 characters. One, Alice Potts, is an old lady who's on the brink of crazy, and I have to bring that urgency to her voice and give her that, age-appropriate sound, and that's gonna be challenging. And also for Mason, because he's a 6-year-old boy, I have experience doing boy voices, because guys can't do boy voices once they've reached puberty. Because before puberty, boys and girls sound very similar, so I'm able to successfully pull that one off, but I typically do older boy voices, so 6 is young for me, and so that was a challenge. My first attempt sounded like 10, and that's too old. And I tried again and was able to get something that sounded pretty good for that age. And so the challenge for me with Mason is going to be keeping that age, keeping the voice sounding like a 6-year-old boy, and expressing all the drama of his situation. So I've got to bring the emotion while keeping the appropriate voice. So that's going to be tough, challenging, and hopefully going to be able to pull that off and sound genuine. So that's the challenge for me.
So on to Johnny, finally. Johnny is this really nice, kind of cheerful, almost in-your-face, friendly friend kind of guy. Like the kind of guy you're kind of like, okay, buddy, I get it. You're really nice. Stop touching me, please. I'm going to call the police. He's really into Jamie. He's bisexual, I do believe. I think he's really, as a character, he's well written. He's not, I think Paul used the phrase not camp in the slightest, which I think is a really good thing because voicing a character who is a gay guy, who is like the really, stereotypically girly kind of gay guy and, really loud and flamboyant and insulting would be very exhausting, I think, and it would kind of get on my nerves and it would get on everyone else's nerves who kind of listens. So I think that as a character, he's got this really nice balance of wanting to be helpful, but also kind of, getting a little bit too touchy-feely with some of the main cast. Like I said, he's got that thing going on for Jamie. He really wants to get with him, if you know what I mean. Matching his energy level, because he always seems to be, at least in the bits of the rough draft and the final copies that I've read, he always seems to have that level of energy that's just that step above what everyone else is able to tolerate. He always seems to be high on crack or something. I swear, he's horny and he's high on crack. It's not a good combination. I think that it's gonna really be kind of hard to match his level of, energetic innuendos. Well, maybe that'll be the second hardest part of his character, if you know what I mean. Got him!
My character's name is Keith Wakefield, a simple farming man with a lovely, lovely wife that he cares for deeply, who unfortunately can't work on the farm as well as she is able to. And this concerns Keith pretty greatly, seeing his wife in pain on almost a daily basis, and he just wants the pain to go away because he loves her very, very much and cares for her well-being. To the point where he doesn't really think about his actions. He just thinks about, what can I do to make my wife feel better? So he's very, very caring man, but he doesn't really think about his decisions right away. And sometimes I could relate to that when it comes to someone who I care about deeply and see them not very well. I tend to take more action than thinking about a situation, much like Keith does, which can be problematic for someone who takes action rather than thinking a situation out, as we will find out during Keith's storyline. Little drama happens there. But that's Keith's personality. He's willing to do whatever it takes to make his lovely wife feel better again. I think the hardest part about making this character come to life is really trying to project how he's feeling. I do know that he does care for his wife deeply and was willing to do anything, but there are so many emotions that could happen in those little tiny moments. There could be feelings of panic, of sadness, of anger, all these little emotions that happen to someone when they're going through a really hard time, when they're trying to find a way to help a certain person that they deeply love. Can be kind of difficult sometimes to act out when it is just your voice. That's one of the challenging things sometimes about voice acting is it's much different than being on stage. Because when you're on stage, you have your facial expressions, and people can see whether you're sad, whether you're angry, whether you're happy, but you kind of have to project that with your voice. You have to make the audience feel that you are sad, happy, angry, just through the sound of your voice alone. And that can be difficult sometimes.
What separates this show from the others you have done?
The thing that separates this show from everything else I've done is basically the sheer size of it and the dedication that it's going to take to, keep it running. I think Paul has that dedication. It's so massive, and it's one of the few things that I've done where the cast has all this input as to what can happen. I think that Paul asked us in a previous email, he's like, hey, shoot me some suggestions. Do you want your character to die? How do you want your character to die? Do you think this twist would be good? Do you think this is a good idea? Send me ideas. We have this level of creative freedom that I don't think I've ever had with any other project, and I think that really sets this show apart from others.
Obviously, one of the most prevalent things about the Purgatorians as a show is that it's paid. As previously stated, it's also incredibly well organised and professional, unlike a majority of previous and continuing projects I've been cast in, which are often somewhat erratic and greatly varied in runtime and deadlines, which just makes things confusing for everyone involved. The show is also extremely well written, and as a stickler, I'm only glad to have found so much correct grammar and consistent characterization in the scripts thus far.
I think what separates this show from a lot of the others that I have done is that it's a very involved, it's a big project, but also it's very organized because Paul's on top of things and he keeps us informed. He's constantly reaching out to us with updates, and that's really great. It involves everybody, so we get to feel like we're part of the team. And a lot of projects that I've worked on, we get cast for something and then maybe you hear from the project manager like months out and you forget what voice you used when you auditioned and you forget who your character is. I think that that's maybe just because a lot of projects are personal projects with people work on in between work, and I can understand that, but with such a big project like the Purgatorians, it's good to know that he's very organized and on top of things, so we can be assured that the work that we're putting into it is actually going to come to fruition, that we're not just recording a bunch of stuff that's just going to sit somewhere. So that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice to know that we're really moving forward on having this great, final product that we can be proud of.
Like I said before, this is definitely the biggest project that I've been a part of, where it's been multiple people doing so many voices, like a TV show, like I said. But what I think is awesome and unique is that the creator of the Purgatorians, Paul Hornsby, is willing to hear what we have to say about the project and how we can further progress in the creation of this, which is an awesome feeling because it makes us feel that we are included in the creation of this instead of just, voicing and being done with it kind of thing. It really means a lot that he's willing to hear us out and what we have to say, and it's just awesome that it makes me feel included in the creation of the Purgatorians and how we can make this awesome script even better.
While projects I'm used to are kind of very black and white, this one is a lot darker. At least for my character. This is a lot darker. This is just a lot more dramatic than what I'm used to, and I really like that. It takes me out of my comfort zone, and that is something that I love about this project. There's no fear involved in this acting, I guess I should say. This one is just very out there. Anytime you think someone's not gonna push that button, they push it, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe that just happened. That definitely separates it from other shows I've done, because I'm used to a lot of comedy. Having something this dark, certainly, it's new and it's very exciting.
Why did you want to take part in such a large project?
Initially, one of my main motivators to audition for the project was the fact that the project was paid, and as a student in their last year before going to university, this is obviously very appealing to me. But while I am shallow in the sense of my poor financial management, I can honestly say that I just love being in larger casts. In fact, I find that I greatly prefer it. At school, the productions comprise of roughly 30 actors each year, and while of course we're all students between the ages of 11 and 18, there's a real sense of community and teamwork between us all, as we work for months and months and months on end to fashion something that is entirely our own. I just find that larger projects give more scope to what's being created, and with a near excess of such interesting characters, like in the Purgatorians, the plotlines just become interwoven entirely, and that much more exciting to watch unravel.
I wanted to take part in a project like this because I think it's got a lot of potential to get really, really big, kind of a cult following at first, maybe, even if it stays kind of cult, I would like that, because some of my favorite things are like these really ambitious projects that get all this love poured into them and all this effort. That's what Paul's doing, he's putting so much effort into this, and that's really dangerous to do, and you've got to have confidence in your project to do that, and I really admire that. I mean, hell, half the stuff I do, I just drop it halfway through, which is really a bad habit of mine, but I think that the drive required to do such a big project like this, and the community that's going to be forged between the actors, the single writer, who's also the director, etc., as I said before. I think that the sort of camaraderie that's going to be had between the cast members and Paul, is going to be a really great thing to be a part of. I always love these voice projects that turn into these big, fun group endeavors, and I think I'm just going to have a hell of a lot of fun with it. That's why I want to be on board with this.
Well, I really just like helping out projects that I think I might be a good fit for, and with this one, honestly, it didn't dawn on me just how big of a project it was. Even though I was scrolling through the many characters looking for the one or two that I thought I might be able to try out for. It really wasn't until I started getting the scripts that I realized this is just a little bit bigger than I thought it was.
I wanted to take part in such a large project because I like being part of a team that's working toward a goal. I like to be part of the creative process, working with others, and everybody's on the same page trying to accomplish something. And when you work together, there's camaraderie, and I really appreciate that. And when we create something together as a team, it's very fulfilling.
I just thought it would be something really fun to do. I'm not sure what else to say other than that. It's always fun working with a group of people who share a common interest as you, and coming together to create something really awesome and that you care really deeply about. And it's super fun to do, just working with other people who share a common interest, such as voice acting. And not only are they just your quote-unquote co-workers, but they can be your friends as well. You might create something together, you could try to find other voice actors for your story, for your audiobook, for your animation, for whatever the need might be. And then those voice actors meet together and become best friends, and they might have ideas, and it's just this huge cycle of creativeness, of awesomeness, and just people working together and having fun.
Well, with large projects come a really small community of the people who are actually working on it. And in that small community, there tends to be a lot of support. There's just so much experience, and there's just so many ways to meet people and get lifelong contacts and friends, and projects like this really pay off, if not just for the result, but just the connections you get to make with others and your audience, of course.
And I don't know why this sand keeps slipping through my fingers. And I don't know why the clouds, they always seem to linger. All I know is when it's your time to go, you go. Yeah, what I found, no coming back around. People come and people go, so we're told. I should have known. But when you're young, you think that some are invincible. The cycle begins.